In this lesson today, we're going to be talking about the rise of Islam. The essential information we need to know by the end is to be able to describe important parts of Islamic belief, such as Muhammad, the Quran, and Islam's relationship with Judaism and Christianity. To start talking about Islam, we need to first start talking about Muhammad. The religion of Islam began about 1400 years ago with the teachings of Muhammad. Muhammad, whose name means chosen one, started out as a poor camel driver. He married a rich widow named Khadijah and then made a fortune in the caravan trade. At the age of 40, Muhammad had a vision of the angel Gabriel. Gabriel told Muhammad to preach the word of God. This is Khadijah converting to Islam. He started out by discussing this with family and friends, and soon he was preaching to large crowds. This is a picture of the angel Gabriel. Muhammad's wife Khadijah was the first to convert to Islam. Allah is the Arabic word for God. Muhammad taught that all people were equal before Allah and must submit to Allah's will. This is the symbol for Allah in Arabic. The word Islam means submission to Allah. Muslim means one who has submitted. So the whole basis of the faith is submitting to the teachings of Allah and that religion. Mecca is an incredibly important place in Islamic history. This is where Muhammad started his teachings, but then was eventually forced out for breaking the religions of that area. This was a polytheistic region where they were worshipping multiple gods, and Muhammad's teachings did not follow along with that. Islam is not only a religion, but it is a way of life. A Muslim must follow 5 major duties called the 5 pillars of Islam in order to be a good Muslim. These are Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Sawam, and Jah. The first of these means faith. Muslims must declare that there is only one God who is called Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet. This is similar to the way that Christians have to believe in Jesus Christ. Prayer. A Muslim must pray 5 times a day between dawn and dusk while kneeling and facing Mecca. So it's important that you know your directions if you're Muslim, because you need to be praying in the direction of Mecca. Give alms. This means to give money, food, and or clothes to the poor. It's also a charitable religion that says you must help others in order to be a member in good standing of this faith. The fourth of the 5 pillars is fasting. A Muslim must fast, which means not eat or drink from sun up to sundown during the entire holy month of Ramadan. And the last of the 5 pillars of Islam is the Hajj. This is a pilgrimage to Mecca once in their lives. If you are physically and financially able to do this, you need to do this. What happened was Muhammad started off teaching in Mecca, was kicked out, and had to return. And this was his trip and his triumphant return that you're supposed to follow and recreate in your own time. When he initially went to Mecca, he went to the Kaaba. The Kaaba was where all the statues of the many gods of the region were held, and he went and he smashed all of those those statues to those gods because he believed they were worshiping a false god. These are the people of the book. Muhammad saw Abraham and Jesus as prophets and claimed to be the last of the prophets. So he is, again, in this long line of faith. And we'll talk about how Judaism and Christianity line up with Islam. The Hebrew Scriptures and the Christian Bible are considered earlier revelations, and the Quran is the last and most perfect version. So they're not saying that the Hebrews and Christians are wrong, but that their time is done and over with, and now the Quran is the final and best translation of God's will to mankind. So again, that would be the Torah and the Holy Bible. The Quran. The Quran is the holy book of Islam. After Muhammad's death, his followers compiled his revelations into one book. Muslims consider only the Arabic version to be the true word of Allah. So versions that are translated are not. To be truly speaking to Allah, you need to be using, or praying to Allah, you need to be using the Arabic version. Islamic life after Muhammad's death. There's some very early challenges to Islam. One is that Muhammad died in 632 AD and did not say who should take his place as the head of Islam. The Dome of the Rock is the oldest Islamic building, and it's an incredibly holy site for Muslims. It's in Jerusalem, along with many holy sites to both Jews and Christians, and this is where it is believed by Muslims that Muhammad ascended to heaven from the rock inside. Muhammad's closest friend, Abu Bakr, became the new leader of Islam. The leaders of Islam are known as caliphs. Here are some pictures of the Dome of the Rock. This is the temple that is built around it. Again, this is one of the most holy sites for Muslims right after Mecca. Some divisions begin to emerge within Islam. Conflict between Muslims started over who would replace Muhammad as the leader of Islam. And two groups of Muslims formed. One is Sunnis and the other are Shia. Let's talk about Sunnis first. Sunnis make up about 83% of Muslims in the world today. They believe that the first four caliphs were the rightly guided caliphs, and they were doing things correctly, and that is how followers of Islam, Muslims, should behave and act. They follow Sunnah, which is Muhammad's example of how to live a good life. They claim that the Shia have distorted the meaning and passages in the Quran and are wrong. Shia, also known as Shiite, these make up about 16% of Muslims in the world today. They believe that the leader of the religion, this person is called an imam, should be a descendant of Muhammad. So there should be a direct bloodline descendant of Muhammad who's in control of the faith. They believe that there are 12 imams, starting with Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, and that the 12th has not yet come. So just as the Jews in the past were waiting for their Messiah, Shias are waiting for another imam to come and lead the Muslim faith. They claim that the Sunni have distorted the meaning of in the passages in the Quran. On your sheet it says Shia. Make sure you cross that out and write Sunni, because the Shia do not claim that they have distorted the meaning. So Islam's links to Judaism and Christianity. Muslims believe that Allah is the same God that Jews and Christians worship. Remember, they all go back through the same chain. God, Jesus, God again as Morgan Freeman, and then Allah. all three religions trace their ancestry back to Abraham. So remember, Abraham was the original prophet for the Jews who spoke to God and created the first covenant to move his people to Judea so that they would be protected. That was his deal with God. Sharia law requires Muslim leaders to be tolerant to Jews and Christians. So all these religions have parts in them that say they should be respectful of all other religions. The stuff that we see going on in the world today is distortions of the original meanings of these faiths and how people have taken to reading them and interpreting them for themselves. And that's where we see a lot of the conflict in the Middle East and in the United States as well. And again, here we talked about how all of them are related to each other. So Abraham at the very top, he's the very first prophet. And we can see how Judaism started with him. Christianity, the grandsons of the great-great-grandsons of Abraham lead to Jesus Christ. And some of the other sons of Abraham become the Arabs, and they trace their ancestry back to Abraham. So we can see that in a bloodline, all three religions trace their roots back to Abraham, and that's another major connection for them. So that's going to be it for today's notes.